Week 2 stacking to win it. I'm Jason Gilbo. With me is Justin Elick, breaking down your favorite stacks of the week. Hopefully a much better high-scoring Week 2. I mean, well, at least we have a few games that jump off the pages because Week 1 was an absolute disaster.
Yeah, I mean, we've got plenty of big totals here. I mean, most of them, I guess, in 2 games. And then we got a couple one-off decent-sized totals. But for the most part, there's going to be some chalk with these top 4 stacks. But, I mean, they're full game stacks that look like they're going to be in really good shape.
Yeah, and let's talk the Sunday night game here first. Packers and Falcons. We'll talk the Packers side of things, which is your top stack. Obviously a good spot, for Aaron Rodgers and this whole team. And, Ty Montgomery is one of those guys where he's probably going to be one of the most popular plays of Week 2.
Yeah, I mean, really probably at any position. He's a guy that's he just looked so good. And, this is a team that threw the second most passes of any team in the league last season. And obviously, you wouldn't think that would work out well for a running back. But as we know, Ty Montgomery is still a converted wide receiver. And 19 carries, only 2.8 yards to carry last week, but did get a touchdown and saw 4 looks in the passing game, ended up with 39 yards there. So, I mean, he's just got a great floor. And, I mean, we saw what Tariq Cohen did to this team last week, and they're just horrible at stopping running backs, pass-catching running backs. So, Ty Montgomery, for good reason, is going to be in cash games and tournaments. I mean, I think he'll be the highest owned player. I mean, I'm sure you probably agree. But that's not going to keep him out of my stacks because, I mean, I think he's just got a tremendous floor. He's got maybe not the type of ceiling that, a Le'Veon Bell has, but I think relative to other guys around his price point, I mean, he's definitely got one of the better price point per dollar ceilings of anybody.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I mean, Montgomery, he kind of the prices went up across the industry. Montgomery didn't. I mean, 65 on FanDuel, 58 on DK. I mean, those are just phenomenal prices for a guy who is going to see 20-plus touches in this game. So as far as the passing game goes, you lose Nelson, Devontae Adams. Adams was quiet last week, but he's in a kind of a sneaky good spot again here. And Randall Cobb looked like the Randall Cobb of old, and Rodgers was looking for him.
Yeah, I mean, 13 targets the Cobb saw last week, 9 for 85. The only thing that kind of concerns me with Cobb in this stack is, last week it seemed like, that Seattle secondary they obviously weren't able to take Jordy Nelson out. But, really, if you look outside of that 32-yard touchdown he had 6 catches for 47 yards. So, still kept him relatively quiet aside from that long touchdown where, I mean, I'm pretty sure it was a linebacker covering him. Just blown coverage. But either way, I think Cobb was more the benefactor of a tough matchup for the other 2 guys on the outside. So I'm not particularly high on him this week. That's not to say that I don't like him, but I think, Adams and Nelson on the outside in this one are going to be in better shape. So, for me, I just don't think Cobb has that big time upside that these guys have. So, for me, obviously you're not going to put 3 wide receivers and a running back in. So I think Cobb's kind of the odd man out there. I think he's probably going to be a little higher owned than debate, but I also wouldn't be surprised if he goes out and has a pretty solid game.
I think DK, obviously, he's much more in play than he is over on FanDuel because, there's a couple seasons ago where the touchdowns were in his favor, but it hasn't been of late. And on FanDuel, you need that touchdown more. Like, you can go in and see Cobb and put up like a 7 for 80 game, and that's fine. That's 15 points on DK. Like, you're fine with that at his price.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I mean, he doesn't get the red zone looks that he used to. And, I mean, Jordy Nelson, I think it was him, number 1, I think, last year in red zone targets. I think Kyle Rudolph was second. So, I mean, that when you're getting down to the end zone, he's either going to lob the ball up for Devontae Adams or he's going to get the ball to Jordy Nelson. I mean, that connection, aside from maybe Roethlisberger and Antonio Brown, probably the best in the league. So, I think in your stack, if there's one guy you don't leave out, aside from Montgomery, it'd be Nelson.
I'll split the other side of that one. Falcons, you got Matt Ryan, Julio Jones, Devontae Freeman. And Falcons are an interesting one because they're kind of like the Packers where there's just really, between the 4 teams that we're going to talk about, the top stacks, there's just so many numerous ways you can go with them.
Yeah, I mean, this one I feel like I don't love, as many players on the Atlanta side because I feel like their value is more concentrated. Austin Hooper's not really a guy that I'm on. I know he had a huge game on those 2 catches last week, but he also wasn't covered on an 88-yard touchdown. And I mean, that stiff arm was pretty ferocious. But, either way, I mean, he only saw 2 targets. He caught both of them for a monster game. I mean, he's not going to have another game like that ever again. I mean, he might get a red zone look or 2 and get you a cheap touchdown, but he doesn't have that type of yardage upside. So I think he's a guy that'll be higher on than he should be. But, Matt Ryan, Julio, I think that's a great duo for cash games, tournaments. It's going to be popular, of course, especially Ryan. I think he's going to be one of, if not the highest owned quarterback out there. But, his floor and ceiling against this Packer team that they just absolutely murdered last year in the playoffs is, I mean, it's just tremendous. And he's just been so good, except for, that one quarter against the Patriots when it actually mattered. But, I think if there's any passing, the 2 passing attacks that you always can trust in the entire league are both of these on both these sides here. So I think this game, that total still just seems way too low to me. I mean, I don't know. Somebody's going to have to just have a really bad off day for this game to not sail away over that total.
Yeah, I mean, I think this one's going to be a shootout really on both sides. And really, this is one that I can look to do a full game stack because, I mean, even in Green Bay stack, I mean, I'm playing Jones, like I'm playing bits and pieces of both that came on both sides. So I'm with you. I mean, you talked about Devontae Freeman here. I think he's interesting this week. Him and Tevin Coleman, like I just wish one of them would go down.
Yeah, right.
Like it's bad to say, but for our DFS purposes, like one of them could really eat, but I feel like they just kind of cut into each other's upside a little bit. But I mean, we've definitely seen games where Freeman and Coleman, I mean, can get theirs.
Yeah, I mean, last week I think it was 6 combined targets between the 2 of them, only 2 for Freeman, and he's been, I say historically over the past couple of years, he's been more of the pass catching back than Coleman has been. So I think maybe I'm wrong on this, but I think that week 1 was more of an anomaly where I do think he's going to get more looks in the passing game because I still think he's better in the open field. I think Tevin Coleman maybe better as a runner, not quite as powerful, but we've seen the kind of plays that Freeman can make in the open field, and it's scary the kind of stuff that he can do. So I would be really surprised unless this game just gets way out of hand on Atlanta's side to see him get less than 4 or 5 targets in the passing game.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I think you look at Freeman last week, it was a little bit weird to see Coleman kind of pull out ahead. I mean, snaps, it's still fairly even. There's no real dominant. I mean, targets and touches wise, I mean, they're still pretty close together. I'm actually not going to rule out a Coleman play this week and being contrarian in this stack.
Yeah. I mean, I'm certainly not opposed to it because it seems like they have kind of, 2 years ago, it seemed like, at least when they were both healthy, that it was more of like a, I don't know, maybe 70-30, 60-40 type of split. And they've been slowly, maybe just to limit the workload for these 2 guys. I still think that Freeman's the better all-around player, but I mean, Coleman's a hell of a runner too. So, we've seen plenty of times where one or the two have big games. So yeah, I'm not opposed to Coleman for sure.
Yeah. Let's talk about the other big game, staying in the NFC South, but they're playing the Patriots. Let's take a look at really the Superdome game. And you didn't talk about it in your article, but that's just kind of because it's a standout game. There's not much to really break down. I mean, Tom Brady coming into a Superdome, which is basically the Coors Field of NFL, and Danny Amendola ruled out. I mean, this is another one where there's just a lot of different ways you go with Brady and his weapons.
Yeah, and I mean, so like you said, no Amendola, no Edelman. It's Chris Hogan's a guy that didn't look good like at all last week. He just looked like he couldn't get any kind of separation, and I don't know. I want to be hesitant on him, but it's such a good spot because, I mean, you and I got a little bit of height on you, but I imagine you're probably in a little better shape than I am. So the two of us,
you got the cutoff shirt, man. I'm not subconscious enough to just
that doesn't help. Listen, I got old legs. You're young, so I mean, either way though, I'm not trying to get hit across the middle, but if we're being honest, you and me, any of us with any sort of athletic ability against this Saints secondary, of course, being anecdotal, but I mean, they're the worst in the league, and they have been for probably since you were a baby, since I was a teenager. So they're just so bad, and it doesn't matter with the Patriots. We know I'm not reading into Tom Brady struggling in one game because the Chiefs just played literally the perfect game on both sides of the ball, really all 3 sides of the ball. So I think Hogan's a guy he's not really a cash game guy for me this week. But he's got huge upside. We've seen him as a deep ball threat. And the running back situation we know, of course, is pretty tough there. But Gillislee's getting all the short yardage and goal line work. He wasn't quite as effective as Blunt in the 4th and short, but on the goal line, I mean, he got in 3 times. So, I think he's kind of the guy you go with. But if you do think that they're going to give up some points, and I think James White's the guy that you want to get more exposure to because he seems clearly to be the pass catching guy there.
Yeah, I like James White this week. I mean, he's only 4K on DraftKings, and I mean, he outsnapped Gillisley. Like you said, Gillisley got a lot of work inside the red zone, and you expect that to be the case moving forward. But I mean, White's a guy, especially if they move him around, if he gets some time in the slot, which, I mean, New England's just such a tough team to figure out. But I mean, if they keep Hogan on the outside, I mean, and White runs some slot, I mean, that would be definitely a big upgrade for his game.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think, if the Patriots do end up putting up 30-plus points, I think finding the running back that goes off is kind of the key. But that's kind of been the key for years with this team. So it's a tougher side to stack for sure. But I think Brandon Cook's obviously going to be the guy that a lot of people are going to be on. And, relative to some other top guys, I mean, 7,900 on FanDuel puts him as the 7th most expensive. And I mean, most of the guys in front of him are in pretty fantastic spots too. So maybe he goes a little bit under owns despite this really good matchup. And I mean, if you want to play the narrative there, I mean, this is really the spot for Brandon Cooks to have his breakout. And Bill Belichick wants to act like those things aren't important to him. He wants to have his stone face and never act like narratives matter or anything's important. But I mean, please believe that he wants to help Brandon Cooks kind of I mean, I don't think there's any bad blood, but that would feel good to put up your biggest game against your old team.
Oh, big time. And let's not forget about Gronk. It could definitely be a big Gronk week.
Yeah, I mean, who's tackling him across the middle in this game?
Adrian Peterson, because he's pissed and wants to get on the field for a couple snaps.
As far as offensive players go, I mean, those are probably the 2 guys I wouldn't want to hit. So, I mean, I'd like to see Peterson versus Gronk in a fight. I think Peterson wins that fight.
I think just because he's crazy.
And I'm going to bite my tongue on whatever my next comment was, but never mind.
Let's talk about the other one real quick. I'm kind of worried about New Orleans, actually. No Willie Snead. New England's a team that kind of takes advantage of taking away your best weapon. Like, if they take away Michael Thomas, it's Fleener and Ingram and I like Kamara this week as a GPP guy, but I don't know. I mean, we get home Drew Brees. It could be something, but the weapons don't excite me all that much.
No, I mean, they really don't at all. I mean, are you going to play Ted Ginn over here and hope that he gets a long touchdown? No, I mean.
And he still sings Stephon Gilmore. Like, it's not like it's a huge Malcolm Butler on Thomas and Gilmore on Ginn. I mean, it's not thrilling.
Yeah, I mean, are you going to hope that Brandon Coleman finally has one of those games again? I mean, I'm with you. I'm not particularly excited about this spot. I think it's one of those ones where it's the narrative of, New Orleans is playing at home, Brees is great at home, et cetera, et cetera. And I know Minnesota's a good defense. I mean, they're a good team. Don't get me wrong, but the Saints did not look good at all last week. So, Michael Thomas was a guy that I had higher hopes for. I think on the season he'll be fine, but these first 2 matchups really, really brutal for him. So, that could be the type of fade that you go in with, and these guys are going to see a good amount of ownership. If they struggle, then that's a nice leverage play, not playing these guys.
Yeah, definitely is. Let's get back to your article. Your contrarian stack of the week here, the Raiders. And I think it's contrarian in the sense of as a whole, because some of these guys will get some pieces of ownership. But in terms of the whole, I think more so in the passing game, you're going to get a little bit of a drop off.
Yeah, I mean, biggest favorites on the week by far, 2-touchdown favorite against a terrible Jets team. You imagine Lynch is going to see some ownership. Derek Carr's been decent. I think Derek Carr is going to be, I would assume purely a GPP guy. But, Amari Cooper saw 13 targets last week, only caught 5 of them. So obviously you're never really expecting him to catch, 85, 90% of those targets. But they're taking shots with him, as Derek Carr likes to do. And, Crabtree seems like he's the safe play. But, if you're going to go with a stack in tournaments in this game with the big point spread, you're playing the guy with the big time upside. And I know that Crabtree gets more looks in the red zone, but tell me they're not just going to be trying to throw this ball down the field early, get a big lead, and then just ride beast mode to victory here. And I mean, it's a tremendous spot for Lynch here too. So I'm not going crazy and going with a full, Cooper and Crabtree, because I just can't imagine this game being close in the fourth quarter. But you imagine if they win this game by, 2, 3, 12 scores, whatever it's going to be, that both Cooper, Lynch, and Lynch are going to have their pretty big hand in it. So, like you said, individually, not a contrarian stack, but I don't think a lot of people are going to go with the full team stack here.
Yeah, I don't think so either. Because, like you said, I mean, Derek Carr, he's not getting the ownership over basically all those guys that we just mentioned, those four. And Cooper, I think we'll see a little bit of drop off in his pricing and the guys around him. So I'm with you. I love Marshawn Lynch this week. I mean, as you put in your article, 19 touches in week 1. He looked like his usual self. I mean, taking 4 to 5 defenders to bring it down. And he's going to get some of those red zone looks. They were definitely trying to feature Cooper in the red zone. It'll probably even out here.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, and who do the Jets have to line up with Cooper? I mean, legitimately. I mean, Sheldon Richardson gone too off that line. They can't stop. I think I saw a stat was something like they allowed 8 runs at least 10 yards. And I mean, LaShawn McCoy is good. Don't get me wrong. One of the better backs in the league, but stop. I mean, you can't allow that kind of, almost 200 yards rushing. And I know Buffalo, a run first team, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, it's not to say that they're not one of the better rushing attacks, but I mean, Lynch, they couldn't tackle last week against LaShawn McCoy. Imagine trying to tackle Lynch this week. I wouldn't be surprised if he's the top scoring running back this week.
Whoa, man, bold call.
I wouldn't.
Dang, he's going to need 102 scores for that.
Yeah, he's going to get 102 scores. There's my prediction. 102 scores. 112 and 2 scores.
Oh, man, I would love that. All right, let's get to the value stack here. Chargers and Dolphins. I like the Chargers stack this week. Phillip Rivers, Melvin Gordon, Keenan Allen. Keenan Allen's a really nice price tag on DK. I mean, and Rivers, in general, is cheap this week.
Yeah, I guess this is more so, a value on DraftKings than it is on FanDuel. Not that these guys are particularly expensive there, but Rivers Allen stack is only 11,600 on DraftKings. He's a target monster, and the Dolphins defense is not particularly good. They've got a pretty good front seven, but this is not a spot where I'm worried about them. And we just saw Rivers. He didn't pass for a lot of yardage as you expected he wouldn't against the Broncos, but 3 touchdown passes. We saw a good amount of looks for these guys. Melvin Gordon, over the course of last season, got more and more involved in the passing game. Obviously, that was, with Keenan Allen out. But as long as Keenan Allen can stay healthy, and I don't know if this is the week where he gets his season-ending injury or if it's next week, it's going to happen. But hopefully not this week, because I'll have quite a few shares of him. But, let's go. He's got to have one of the higher floors of anybody this week, especially on DK. At 5,800, he's got to be up there with Montgomery as one of the more popular plays this week.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. Allen, especially on that full PPR site. Like you said, Melvin Gordon, yeah, he's looked more and more involved in the passing game, and Rivers. And you mentioned FanDuel, obviously more expensive, but in comparison to the other stacks, it's on the value side.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and I think Melvin Gordon, a fine guy in all formats there. So not particularly cheap on either site, but kind of a contrarian option, I guess, on this slate.
Yeah. Anyone else just missed the cut for you?
Looking at all these games, I'm tempted with Seattle, but I don't like a full stack. They got a huge total. San Francisco defense, not good, but I can't really pinpoint the production on wide receiver, and I just don't think they're going to need a big Doug Baldwin game to roll through this one. So for me, that would have barely missed the cut. But I do think Russell Wilson with Baldwin. If there was a little bit more clarity on that backfield situation, I might be more excited about it. But I like Tampa Bay, but I don't really like Jacquizz Rodgers. I don't think he has much upside. He's a big volume guy. He's going to be popular in cash games, but I think Winston, Mike Evans is a pretty interesting one here.
Yeah, Deshaun Jackson there now too. That's definitely a big advantage from what they had last year.
Yeah, no kidding. Him up over a 40-year-old Vincent Jackson. I know he wasn't really 40, but he might as well have been because he was just average at best last year.
Yeah, no, those are two that definitely were kind of on the edge of what I was looking at this week as well. So if you want to check out Justin's article, you can head over to DaveFantasyCafe.com. It is up on the site now, and good luck in week 2.